Danny Reed scratched another line through the checklist floating on his tablet screen. Medical supplies for Colony 7, check. Replacement water filters for the mining outpost on Gent's Rock, check. 6. Sealed diplomatic containers bound for somewhere he couldn't pronounce, double check. The cargo bay of the Steady Hand looked more organized than it had in months, which probably meant something would go wrong. That's how these runs usually worked. He climbed the ladder back to the cockpit and dropped into the pilot's seat. The chair groaned under his weight, the same complaint it had been making for 3 years now. Outside the viewport, the loading dock of Freeman Station buzzed with activity. Ships came and went like insects around a hive. Nobody paid attention to his freighter. It was old, slow, and exactly the kind of vessel that drew zero interest from anyone important. Perfect. AI, run final systems check, Danny said, pulling his harness across his chest. All systems functional within acceptable parameters, the ship's computer replied in its flat, emotionless voice. Though I should mention the port thruster is still showing that vibration in the lower register. It's been showing that vibration for 2 years. When it actually breaks, let me know. A proactive maintenance schedule would prevent. Yeah, plot course for the outer fringe, standard commercial lane. The AI went silent, which was as close to sulking as a basic ship computer could manage. Danny smiled despite himself. He'd been flying solo for 6 years now, and sometimes arguing with the AI was the closest thing he had to conversation. The Steady Hand pulled away from the dock with all the grace of a drunk elephant. She wasn't pretty, but she got the job done. Danny had learned during his military days that fancy equipment just meant more things to break. Simple and reliable beat advanced and temperamental every single time. 3 hours into the flight, Danny was halfway through a protein bar that tasted like cardboard when the proximity alarm chirped. His hand moved to the console before his brain fully registered the sound. Old habits. AI, what have we got? Distress beacon, bearing 273 Mark 8, distance approximately 40,000 kilometers. Danny pulled up the scanner display. A blinking red dot pulsed against the swirling purple backdrop of the Ashfall Nebula. The nebula was beautiful if you ignored the fact that its magnetic fields played hell with navigation systems, and its dust clouds could shred an unprepared ship. Can you identify the vessel? Negative. The beacon's signature is broadcasting on Dracovan frequencies, but I'm detecting significant damage to the transmission array. The signal is degraded. Dracovan. Danny's eyebrows rose. The Draconans didn't call for help. Ever. They were the kind of species that would rather drift into a star than admit they needed assistance from anyone, especially not from a species they considered barely above vermin. Humans ranked somewhere between annoying and irrelevant in the Dracovan worldview. He checked his timeline. The delivery contract had penalties built in for late arrival. Real penalties, the kind that would eat up most of his profit margin for the month. But regulations were clear. Any vessel detecting a distress beacon was obligated to investigate and render aid. Danny had never been good at ignoring regulations, even the inconvenient ones. Change course, get us to that beacon. This will result in significant delays to our scheduled delivery. I know. The contract penalties. I know, Danny repeated firmer this time. Do it anyway. The Steady Hand turned toward the nebula, her engines whining as they pushed against the increased gravitational interference. The purple clouds grew larger in the viewport, beautiful and menacing in equal measure. Danny's fingers drummed against the armrest. Something about this felt wrong. Draconans traveled in convoy when they moved through dangerous space. A single ship sending a distress call meant something had gone very wrong. 20 minutes later, his sensors painted a picture that made his stomach drop. A Dracovan transport hung dead in space, its hull torn open in 3 places. Debris surrounded it like a metal cloud. The ship's design was ceremonial, all curves and decorative plating, not a military vessel. not equipped for the kind of damage Danny was seeing. "Life signs?" he asked. Scanning, multiple contacts detected. At least 5 Dracovan biosignatures, possibly more. Life support appears to be failing in several compartments. Danny was already moving, pulling his emergency gear from the locker behind his seat. Pressure suit, medical kit, portable oxygen tanks. His hands moved through the checklist automatically, muscle memory from too many emergency responses during the war. "Prep the airlock, I'm going over there. Standard protocol requires you to await." "Nobody's coming out here, AI. We're 3 hours from the nearest station and that ship doesn't have 3 hours. Prep the airlock." He sealed his helmet and moved through the steady hand's narrow corridors. The ship felt even smaller in the bulky pressure suit. At the airlock, he grabbed a tether line and magnetic grapples. Through the small window, he could see the damaged Dracovan ship. It was massive compared to his freighter, easily 3 times the size. The ceremonial markings along its hull were partially melted. The outer airlock door hissed open. Danny stepped into the void. Space had a way of making everything feel insignificant. He'd never gotten used to that. The tether line spooled out behind him as he crossed the gap between ships. His boots locked onto the Dracovan hull with a magnetic clunk that echoed through his suit. He found an intact airlock and spent 2 minutes convincing it to cycle without power. The door finally groaned open. Emergency lights flickered inside, casting everything in angry red. The corridor beyond was tilted at an unnatural angle. Danny pulled himself through. The ship's interior was a mess. Exposed wiring hung from the ceiling. A fine mist of frozen atmosphere crystallized in the air. He followed the biosignature readings deeper into the vessel, his helmet lamp cutting through the darkness. He found them in what looked like a ceremonial chamber. 3 Draconans stood around a 4th who lay on the floor. They were massive, easily 12 feet tall, with scales that gleamed like polished bronze even in the dim light. Wings folded against their backs. Their eyes tracked his approach with predatory intensity. The one on the floor wasn't moving. Danny approached slowly, hands visible, medical kit held out in front of him. The standing Draconans tensed, their clawed hands moving toward weapons that weren't there. "I'm here to help," Danny said, knowing his translator would broadcast the words. "That distress beacon brought me. I have medical supplies." The largest Dracovan, a female with silver markings across her snout, spoke. Her voice was deep and resonant even through the translator. "We require no assistance from your kind, human. Your friend there suggests otherwise." Danny knelt beside the fallen Dracovan, scanning for injuries. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, system shock. Bad, very bad. "High Commander 4th does not need." "High Commander 4th is dying," Danny interrupted, his hands already moving, pulling equipment from his kit. "You can maintain your pride or you can let me try to save him. Your choice. Make it fast." The silver-marked Dracovan stared at Danny for what felt like an eternity. Her amber eyes held calculations he couldn't read. Behind her, the other 2 guards shifted their weight, claws scraping against the metal floor. The sound echoed through the damaged chamber like warning bells. "Do it," she finally said, stepping aside. Danny didn't waste time acknowledging her. His hands were already working. 4th's chest barely moved with shallow breaths. The scales around his torso had cracked, revealing the softer tissue beneath. Dark blue blood seeped from multiple wounds. "I need you to hold this," Danny said, pressing a stabilization field generator into the nearest guard's clawed hand. The Dracovan looked at the device like Danny had handed him a live grenade. "Just keep it pointed at his chest. Red light stays on." The guard complied, though his expression suggested this was beneath his dignity. Danny pulled out a diagnostic scanner and ran it over 4th's body. The readout made him wince. Collapsed lung, fractured ribs, internal bleeding in at least 3 locations. Back during the war, he'd seen soldiers with injuries like this. Most of them hadn't made it. "What happened here?" Danny asked, pulling out a coagulant injector. "We were transporting ceremonial artifacts to the embassy worlds," the female Dracovan said. "3 unidentified vessels ambushed us. We attempted to fight, but our ship is not military grade. They disabled our engines and weapons. High Commander Forth ordered us to send the distress beacon before." She stopped, her jaw tightening. "Before he took the impact meant for the command deck." Danny processed that while his hands kept moving. Forth had put himself between danger and his crew. Brave or stupid, depending on perspective. Right now it didn't matter. What mattered was the punctured lung filling with blood. "I'm going to insert a drainage tube," Danny said, more to himself than to them. "It's going to hurt. Even unconscious, his body will react." "You should not," the female began. "If I don't, he dies in the next 10 minutes. Danny met her eyes. "Your call again." She gave a slight nod. Danny positioned the tube and pushed it through the softer tissue between scales. Forth's body convulsed. The guards surged forward, but Danny held up a hand. "He's okay. That's normal. Look." He pointed to the tube as dark blood began draining into a collection bag. "Pressure's releasing. He can breathe now." The guards watched with expressions Danny couldn't read. Draconans didn't show emotion the way humans did. Everything was controlled, measured. But he thought he saw something shift in the female's eyes. Uncertainty, maybe. "What is your designation?" she asked. Danny Reed, independent freight hauler. He was sealing Forth's external wounds now, working from worst to least severe. "You." "Second Commander Vara," she gestured to the others. "Wing Leader Threx and Honor Guard Rennick." "Nice to meet you. Wish it was under better circumstances." Danny pulled out a bone stabilizer and carefully applied it to Forth's ribcage. The device hummed to life, creating a temporary framework. "This'll keep things in place until we get him to a real medical facility." "The nearest Dracovan outpost is 2 days away," Threx said. His voice was younger than the others, less certain. "Our communication array was destroyed." "My ship has working comms. We can call for help once we're clear of this nebula." Danny checked Forth's vitals again. "Stronger, but not by much. But first we need to get him stabilized enough to move." He worked for another 20 minutes, losing himself in the familiar rhythm of emergency medicine. It had been years since he'd done this kind of field work. During the war, he'd been assigned to a rapid response unit. They'd drop into hot zones and pull out wounded before the situation got worse. He'd been good at it. Good enough that command wanted him to stay, train others. But after the war ended, Danny found he couldn't stomach the idea of more combat, even medical combat. So he'd bought a cheap freighter and started hauling cargo. Quiet, simple, no emergencies. "Right. His breathing's better," Vara observed. She'd been watching the entire time, her posture rigid but her attention focused. "Yeah, the coagulant is working on the internal bleeding. He's not out of danger, but he's stable for now." Danny sat back on his heels. His pressure suit was covered in blue blood. "We need to get him to my ship. My medical bay is basic, but it's better than this." "You have medical facilities?" Rennick asked. He was the biggest of the 3 guards, his scales a darker bronze than the others. "I have a medical bay. Calling it facilities would be generous." Danny started packing his equipment. "But it has working life support and more supplies than what I brought in this kit." "We should wait for Dracovan rescue," Vara said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Your choice, but that distress beacon is barely functional. We're in a nebula that blocks most long-range communications and your ship's life support is failing. I saw the readouts. You've got maybe 6 hours before this whole section loses atmosphere." Danny finished packing and stood. "I can have Forth aboard my ship in 30 minutes. Your call. 3rd time I'm saying that, by the way." Vara's jaw tightened. Danny recognized the expression now. She was angry, probably at him, definitely at the situation. Draconans didn't like depending on others. Their entire culture was built around self-sufficiency and strength, accepting help from a human went against everything they were taught. But she was also a soldier. She understood triage. "We accept your assistance," she said finally. The words sounded like they physically hurt. "Good, Threx Rennick, you're going to help me carry him. Vara, grab whatever you can't leave behind. We move in 5 minutes." They moved in 4. Getting Forth's unconscious body through the damaged corridors and across the void between ships was nerve-wracking. Every bump, every jostle risked undoing Danny's work. But they managed. The Steady Hands cargo bay had enough room for all 4 Draconans, though they had to fold their wings tight. Danny got Forth secured in the medical bay and connected to monitoring equipment. The readout steadied. Not great, but better than dead. He found Vara standing in the corridor outside, staring at the wall. "He'll make it," Danny said. "I've seen worse pull through." "You have medical training." It wasn't a question. "Military field medic, before I got into hauling cargo." "Why did you stop?" Danny shrugged. "Got tired of watching people die. Figured cargo doesn't bleed." Vara turned to face him fully. In the tight corridor, she had to duck slightly to avoid hitting her head. "You violated your delivery contract to answer our distress beacon. You risked your life boarding a damaged vessel. You gave medical aid to a species that has shown humans nothing but disdain. Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do." "That is not an answer." "Sure it is." Danny pulled off his helmet. His hair was matted with sweat. "Look, I don't know how Draconans work, but humans, we've got this thing where we help people in trouble. Not because we expect something back. Not because it benefits us. Just because letting someone die when you can prevent it, that's not something most of us can live with." Vara studied him like he was a particularly confusing puzzle. "That is weakness." "Maybe, or maybe it's the only kind of strength that actually matters." Danny moved past her toward the cockpit. "Get some rest. I need to plot a course out of this nebula and figure out how to explain to my client why their delivery is going to be late." Behind him, Vara remained silent, but Danny felt her eyes on his back all the way down the corridor. The steady hand cleared the outer edge of the Ashfall Nebula just as Danny finished calculating how much money he was going to lose on this detour. The number made him grimace. 2 months of profit gone. He'd be eating nothing but protein bars and recycled water for a while. Worth it though, probably. He was double-checking the nav computer when the proximity alarm screamed. Not the polite chirp from before. This was the full klaxon, the sound that meant something was very wrong very fast. AI report. 3 vessels approaching at high velocity. Configuration matches known pirate raider class. They are hailing us. Danny's blood went cold. Pirates weren't uncommon in the outer fringe, but they usually hunted bigger prey. A solo freighter should have been beneath their notice. Unless they'd been watching the nebula. Unless they'd seen him pull Draconans off that wreck. "Put them through." A scarred face filled his communication screen. Human, which somehow made it worse. The man's smile showed more gaps than teeth. "Well, well, looks like someone beat us to the salvage. Here's how this works, friend. You hand over your cargo and your passengers and we let you limp away with your ship. You refuse and we take everything including your corpse. Simple math." Danny's hand hovered over the communication controls. He could feel Vara's presence behind him. She must have heard the alarm. "How many credits are Draconans worth?" Danny asked, keeping his voice level. The pirate's grin widened. "Alive, to the right buyer, enough to retire. Their families pay good money for ransoms. Plus that wreck you pulled them from had some nice cargo we didn't get to. We figure you helped yourself to some of it." "And if I say no?" "Then we blow your engines off and take what we want from the wreck of your ship. I don't care either way. You've got 30 seconds. The screen went dark. "We will fight," Vara said from the doorway. Threx and Rennick appeared behind her, their faces grim. "You're injured and this ship has exactly one defensive weapon," Danny said, pulling up the tactical display. "3 raiders, each armed better than his freighter. Fighting is suicide. Better to die in combat than surrender to." "Nobody's dying today," Danny cut her off. His fingers flew across the controls. "AI, how fast can we go?" "Current maximum velocity is." "No, I mean really go. Emergency power to engines. Strip everything else." "That would require shutting down non-essential systems, including partial life support, and—" "Do it, and plot me a course through that asteroid field at Mark 362. Vara moved closer. "That field is dense. At high speed, collision would kill us, yeah, but I flew combat missions in worse." Danny's hands moved through pre-flight sequences he hadn't used in years. The muscle memory was still there. "Strap in. This is going to be rough." The steady hand lurched forward as the engine screamed to full power. Danny angled toward the asteroid field, a dense cluster of rock and ice that most sane pilots avoided. Behind them, the 3 raiders accelerated in pursuit. "They're faster than us," the AI reported. "I know. That's why we're going somewhere their speed won't help." The first asteroids appeared on the view screen. Danny dove between 2 spinning chunks of rock, missing each by meters. The ship shuddered as her shields deflected smaller debris. Behind them, the raiders spread out, trying to get firing solutions. A weapons lock alarm shrieked. Danny jerked the controls hard left. A plasma bolt seared past, close enough that he could see the glow through the viewport. It struck an asteroid ahead, shattering it into thousands of fragments. "Thruster response time is decreasing," the AI warned. "The port engine is still working, that's all I need to know." Danny flew like the ship was part of his body. Every instinct from his combat days came flooding back. He'd been good at this once, better than good. His squadron had called him Ghost because he could slip through defensive grids that should have been impossible. Of course, that had been in a military gunship, not a cargo freighter held together with spare parts and prayer. Another weapons lock. This time Danny couldn't dodge fast enough. The bolt clipped the steady hand's stern. Alarms erupted across every console. The ship spun, tumbling end over end. Danny fought the controls, trying to stabilize. "Hull breach in Cargo Bay 3, the AI announced. "Emergency bulkheads activated." Behind him, Danny heard Vara curse in her own language. The Draconans had been thrown against the walls, but they were still alive. One of the raiders shot past, moving too fast to compensate for Danny's spin. It clipped an asteroid and exploded in a brilliant flash. 2 left. Danny got the ship under control and dove deeper into the field. The asteroids here were bigger, more densely packed. Less room to maneuver, but also harder for the raiders to get clear shots. "You are insane," Vara said. She'd pulled herself back to the doorway, one hand gripping the frame. "Yeah, probably." Danny rolled the ship, threading between 3 asteroids in quick succession. "But I'm insane with a plan." "Which is?" "They want our cargo, right? Which means they can't just blow us up. They need to disable us." Danny spotted what he was looking for, a cluster of asteroids ahead rotating around a common center of gravity. "So I'm going to make them work for it." He accelerated straight toward the cluster. The raiders followed, weapons charging. At the last second, Danny cut the main engines and fired only the lateral thrusters. The steady hand slipped sideways through a gap between asteroids that should have been too small. The raiders weren't so lucky. One tried to follow and scraped along an asteroid's surface, tearing off its weapon array. It spiraled away, trailing atmosphere. The last raider pulled up, trying to come around for another pass. Danny didn't give it the chance. He'd been watching the asteroid rotation patterns. He knew exactly when the gap would close. He fired thrusters one more time, positioning the steady hand behind a massive rotating rock. The raider came around the asteroid at full speed, weapons hot, ready to fire. The gap closed. Two asteroids came together like a massive set of jaws. The raider tried to reverse thrust, but momentum worked against it. The ship crumpled between the rocks, its fusion core breaching in a flash of white light. Silence filled the cockpit, just the steady beep of the sensors and the hum of the engines. "You used the asteroid field as a weapon," Vara said quietly. "I used the universe, gravity, rotation, basic physics. The raiders were so focused on us they forgot to watch their surroundings." Danny exhaled slowly, his hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fatting. "Old combat trick, make the environment do your fighting." "That was not luck." "No, that was experience." He turned to face her, "and a lot of practice from a life I don't live anymore." Vara studied him with those amber eyes. "You were a warrior." "I was a pilot. There's a difference." "Is there?" Danny didn't have an answer for that. He turned back to the console and started assessing damage. The hit to their stern had been bad. They'd lost one cargo container, the shields were down to 30%, and the port engine was making a grinding sound that promised imminent failure. "How is Forth?" he asked. "Rennick is with him. The medical bay's bulkhead held. He is stable." "Good." Danny pulled up a star chart. "We're 3 days from the nearest station now. That port engine won't last 3 hours. I need to find somewhere to set down and make repairs." "There is a Dracovan outpost 4 hours from here," Vara said. "On the third moon of Helix Prime. It is small, barely a way station, but they will have repair facilities." "Will they have facilities for a human ship?" "They will if I order them to." Danny glanced back at her. "You can do that." "I am second commander of the Imperial Honor Guard. When I give orders, they are followed." She paused. "You saved our lives twice now. I believe my people can provide basic ship repairs in return." Danny trailed off surprised. "Thank you." "Do not misunderstand. I am repaying a debt, nothing more. Draconans do not forget obligations." "Right, sure." Danny plotted the course. 4 hours. Think your commander will make it? If he survived your flying through that asteroid field, he will survive anything." Was that a joke? Danny looked at Vara's face, but her expression remained unreadable. Draconans and humor apparently didn't mix. He set the autopilot and leaned back in his chair. His hands were still shaking. Combat flying took a toll, even when you won, especially when you won by inches. "Get some rest," Vara said. "I will watch the sensors." "You don't need to. You saved us. The least I can do is let you sleep." Danny wanted to argue, but exhaustion was catching up fast. He nodded and closed his eyes. Behind him, he heard Vara settle into the co-pilot's chair. Her presence was strange but not uncomfortable. For the first time in 6 years, Danny Reed wasn't flying alone. Danny woke to find Forth watching him from the medical bay doorway. The Dracovan commander had somehow managed to stand despite injuries that should have kept him flat on his back for days. His scales looked dull, his breathing shallow, but his eyes were alert. "You should be lying down," Danny said, pushing himself out of the pilot's chair. His back protested. Sleeping in the seat had seemed like a good idea 4 hours ago. "I have been lying down for 12 hours. It was sufficient." Forth's voice was weaker than Vara's, but it carried the same controlled authority. "You are the human who saved my life." Danny Reed. And yeah, I guess so. Danny moved past him toward the medical bay. "Come on, let me check your vitals before you collapse and make all my work pointless." Forth followed, moving carefully. In the small medical bay, he barely fit. His wings scraped the ceiling. Danny pulled out the diagnostic scanner and ran it over the commander's torso. The readings were better than expected. Draconans healed fast. "Your technique is skilled," Forth observed. "Military training." "Field medic, yeah, long time ago." Danny marked down the vitals. "Your lung is reinflating properly. The internal bleeding has stopped. You're lucky. Another hour without treatment and you'd have been gone." "Luck implies chance. You made a choice to divert from your route, to board a damaged vessel, to provide aid to strangers who have given you no reason to do so. Fourth's amber eyes studied Danny. I do not understand this behavior. Not much to understand. Someone needed help. I could provide it. End of story. No, not end. Beginning. Fourth shifted his weight, wincing slightly. Vara told me what happened with the pirates. You protected us, fought for us, sacrificed your contract completion for our safety. The contract can be renegotiated. Your lives couldn't. This is the part I do not understand. We are not your clan, not your species. In Dracovan culture, one protects their own. Outsiders are competitors at best, threats at worst. Yet you risk everything for strangers. Why? Danny put down the scanner and leaned against the wall. It was a good question, one he'd spent 6 years not thinking about too hard. During the war, I saw a lot of people die. Some of them were enemy combatants. Some were civilians caught in the crossfire. Some were my own people. He paused, remembering faces he tried to forget. After a while, I realized something. When someone's bleeding out in front of you, their flag doesn't matter. Their species doesn't matter. They're just a person who doesn't want to die. And if I could stop that, I had to try. That philosophy would be considered weakness among my people. Your people are wrong. Silence filled the medical bay. Danny realized what he'd said and tensed, expecting anger. But Fourth simply tilted his head, curious rather than offended. Explain. Strength isn't about standing alone. It's about knowing when to ask for help and when to offer it. Your culture, from what I understand, is built on individual power, proving yourself, never showing vulnerability. Danny met Fourth's eyes. But what happens when you fall, when you're injured beyond your ability to heal? If everyone around you believes asking for help is weakness, you die. That's not strength. That's just pride with fatal consequences. We have clan bonds. We protect our own. But I'm not your clan, and you would have died if I'd followed that logic. How many Draconans have died because they couldn't admit they needed help from outsiders? How many refused aid because accepting it would damage their honor? Danny pushed off from the wall. Humans figured out a long time ago that cooperation beats competition. It's why we survived on Earth when bigger, stronger species went extinct. It's why we made it to space. Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we learned to help each other. Fourth was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. You lost people in your war. Everyone loses people in war. That's what war does. Yet you speak of cooperation, after experiencing the worst of what cooperation between humans leads to. Danny laughed, but there was no humor in it. Yeah, funny how that works. But the thing is, the war started because people forgot how to cooperate. They drew lines, decided who was us and who was them, and stopped seeing each other as people. The cooperation I'm talking about isn't about agreeing on everything. It's about recognizing that everyone has value. Everyone deserves a chance to live. Even enemies. Especially enemies. Because maybe if you stop seeing them as enemies long enough to help them, they stop being enemies at all. Fourth lowered himself carefully onto the medical bay's examination table. His expression was thoughtful. You fight pirates who threaten us. You contradict your own philosophy. They made their choice when they decided to kill and kidnap for profit. There's a difference between disagreement and active harm. I'll help anyone who needs it, but I'll also stop anyone who's hurting others. Those aren't contradictions. They're different situations requiring different responses. Your species is complicated. All species are complicated, Draconans included. Danny checked the medical equipment. How do you feel honestly? Like I was crushed between asteroids, but alive. Fourth flexed his clawed hands. Vara said you flew through an asteroid field at combat speeds in a cargo freighter, that you used the environment itself as a weapon. She exaggerates. She does not. Vara is many things, but she is not given to embellishment. Fourth's eyes narrowed. You were more than a medic. I was a gunship pilot before I was a medic, then I was both. Then the war ended and I was neither. Danny turned away, busying himself with organizing supplies. Like I said, long time ago. Yet the skills remain, the instincts. Can't unlearn how to fly. Can't unlearn how to fight. Best I can do is choose not to unless I have to. Do you regret those skills? The question caught Danny off guard. He turned back to face forth. I regret that I needed them. I regret the situations that made them necessary, but the skills themselves, no, they saved your life today. They saved Vara, Threx, and Rennick. If having them means I can keep people alive, then I'm glad I have them. Forth nodded slowly. You are a warrior who chooses not to fight, a healer who resorts to violence, a contradiction contained in one being. I'm a freight hauler who wants to deliver cargo and be left alone. The rest is just baggage from my past. No, the rest is who you are. Forth stood steadier now. Draconans spend our lives proving our strength. We duel, we compete, we demonstrate power. Yet you have more strength than most warriors I have met, and you wield it only when necessary. You heal instead of harm, protect instead of dominate. This is not weakness. I am beginning to understand that. This is strength I do not yet comprehend. Commander, I appreciate the philosophy discussion, but you really should rest. I will rest when we reach the outpost. For now, I wish to understand the being who saved my life. Forth moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. My people have dismissed humans as irrelevant, primitive, weak. I believed this. Many still do, but you have shown me something different. Perhaps Draconans have much to learn. He left before Danny could respond. Danny stood alone in the medical bay, surrounded by equipment and supplies, trying to process the conversation. He'd never been good with profound discussions. Give him a busted engine or a medical emergency, and he knew exactly what to do. Give him philosophical questions about the nature of strength, and he was lost. The AI's voice interrupted his thoughts. We are approaching the Dracovan outpost. Second Commander Vara is requesting your presence in the cockpit. On my way. Danny took one last look around the medical bay. Blood still stained the floor where Forth had lain. The emergency supplies were depleted. The space looked like what it was, the site of a desperate fight to save a life. But it had worked. Against odds, against expectations, it had worked. Maybe that was enough philosophy for one day. He headed to the cockpit, where Vara stood staring at the view screen. Through it, Danny could see a small station attached to a rocky moon. It looked military, all straight lines and defensive emplacements. Your people know we're coming, Danny asked. They know. They are not pleased about allowing a human vessel to dock, but they will comply. Vara glanced at him. Forth spoke with you. Yeah, he's doing better. He is thinking. That is good. Forth has always been different from other commanders. He questions, considers. This has made him both respected and controversial among our people. Sounds like a good leader to me. Perhaps. Vara returned her attention to the view screen. The outpost commander will want to speak with you. Be prepared for hostility. Not all Draconans share Forth's willingness to reconsider humans. I'll keep my head down and get my ship fixed. That's all I need. That may not be all they require. Danny caught something in her tone, meaning. Meaning the diplomatic cargo you carry is valuable. Meaning you have seen Dracovan military installations and heard strategic discussions. Meaning some may view you as a security risk. Vara's expression remained neutral. Meaning this may become complicated. Danny sighed. Of course it was complicated. Nothing about this run had been simple since he'd picked up that distress beacon. How complicated? That depends on how much Forth's word carries weight, and whether the outpost commander values honor over suspicion. The station loomed larger on the view screen. Danny could see docking bays opening, defensive turrets tracking their approach, a welcoming committee, heavily armed. He'd saved lives, fought pirates, and had a philosophical discussion about the nature of strength. Now he was about to find out if any of that mattered to Draconans who hadn't been there. The steady hand moved toward the docking bay, and Danny couldn't shake the feeling that the hard part was just beginning. The docking clamps locked onto the steady hand with a metallic thud that echoed through the hull. Danny stood at the airlock, watching the pressure gauges equalize. Behind him, Forth, Vara, Threx, and Rennick waited in silence. The tension was thick enough to cut. "Remember," Vara said quietly, "let me speak first. Do not volunteer information. Answer questions directly but provide no elaboration unless asked." "I've dealt with military types before," Danny replied. "I know the drill." The airlock hissed open. 6 Dracovan guards stood in formation on the other side, their armor gleaming under the station's harsh lights. Behind them, a 7th Dracovan approached. This one was older, his scales marked with scars that suggested a long military career. His eyes were cold. "High Commander Forth," the scarred Dracovan said, his voice formal. "I am Outpost Commander Saren. It is fortunate you survived. Your clan will be notified immediately." "Thank you, Commander, this is." The human. Saren's gaze shifted to Danny, and the temperature in the corridor seemed to drop. "The one who carried diplomatic cargo and now demands access to our military facilities." "I'm not demanding anything," Danny said. "My ship needs repairs. Second Commander Vara suggested your station could provide them. If that's a problem, I can find somewhere else." "You misunderstand. You will not find somewhere else." Saren's claws clicked against his armor plating. "You have seen too much, heard too much. You represent a security concern." "Commander Saren," Forth stepped forward, his movements still careful but his voice firm. "This human saved my life and the lives of my honor guard. He fought off pirates to protect us. He deserves courtesy, not accusations." "What he deserves and what security requires are different matters, High Commander. With respect, you have been unconscious for most of this journey. You do not know what information this human may have gathered, what he may have seen of our diplomatic cargo, what strategic data he may have accessed." Danny felt his jaw tighten. He'd been through this before, back in the military. The paranoid officers who saw threats everywhere, who trusted procedures more than people. "I didn't access anything except my own medical supplies and ship systems," Danny said. "The diplomatic containers are sealed. I used one medical device from one container to save High Commander Forth's life. That's it. No data access, no intelligence gathering, just emergency medicine." "So you admit to breaking security seals on classified cargo?" "I admit to saving a life. If that's a crime in your culture, then I guess I'm guilty." The guards shifted. Their hands moved toward weapons. Vara stepped between Danny and Saren. "Commander, you overstep," she said. Her voice was steady but carried an edge. "This human acted with honor. He violated his own contracts to assist us, lost profit to ensure our safety. These are not the actions of a spy or a threat. They are the actions of someone establishing cover, building trust before exploitation." Saren's tail lashed behind him. "Or perhaps they are the actions of a human who does not understand the consequences of his interference. Regardless, he cannot be allowed to leave until a full security investigation is completed. The diplomatic cargo must be verified. His ship's logs must be examined. This will take time." "How much time?" Danny asked. "As much as required. I have deliveries waiting, contracts, people depending on that cargo. Those are not my concern." "Commander," Forth said, his voice dropping into a tone that made everyone straighten. "You are within your rights to conduct security procedures, but this human is under my protection. He will be treated with dignity and respect. His ship will be repaired while your investigation proceeds. And when it concludes, as I am certain it will, with no evidence of wrongdoing, he will be allowed to continue his route. Are we clear?" Saren held Forth's gaze for a long moment. Danny could see the calculation happening, the weighing of authority versus protocol. Finally, Saren dipped his head slightly. As you command, High Commander, the human will be provided quarters. His ship will be examined and repaired under supervision. He will not be permitted to wander the station unsupervised. That's acceptable, Danny said before anyone could object. He was tired, his ship was damaged, and arguing with paranoid military commanders never ended well. Just get my ship fixed and let me go. Transport your belongings to the quarters. You will be escorted at all times. Two guards moved to flank Danny. He looked at Vara, who gave him a slight nod. Trust the process, her expression said. Danny wished he shared her confidence. The quarters turned out to be a small room with a metal bed, a basic sanitation unit, and no windows. A cell by any other name. Danny dropped his bag on the bed and sat down. The guards remained outside, visible through the partially transparent door. He'd been in worse places. During the war, he'd spent 3 days trapped in a crashed gunship with a broken leg and dwindling supplies. This was almost comfortable by comparison. The door chimed 2 hours later. Danny looked up to see Forth entering, moving better now but still favoring his left side. The guards outside allowed him to pass without question. Your accommodation is insufficient, Forth said, looking around the sparse room. I've had worse. That does not make this acceptable. Forth settled carefully onto the floor, his wings folding tight against his back. Saren is cautious to the point of paranoia. It is what makes him an effective outpost commander. It also makes him difficult. I've met the type. He'll investigate, find nothing, and let me go, eventually. You are not angry. Being angry doesn't change the situation. Besides, from his perspective, I'm an unknown variable in a secure facility. I get it. Danny leaned back against the wall. During the war, we had a commander like him. He interrogated everyone, trusted no one, saw conspiracies everywhere, drove us crazy. But he also kept us alive through 3 major engagements because he never missed a potential threat. You defend the one who imprisons you. I understand him. There's a difference. Danny watched Forth carefully. You didn't come here just to check on my accommodations. No, I came because you should know what happens next. Forth's expression was grave. The investigation will conclude in your favor. I have already submitted my testimony, as have Vara, Threx, and Rennick. The ship's logs and medical records will support your claims. Saren will find no evidence of wrongdoing because there is none. Okay, so what's the problem? The problem is that your actions, while honorable, have created a situation my people cannot ignore. A human saved a high commander, fought off pirates to protect Draconans, demonstrated skills and values we claim to possess but rarely extend to other species. Forth paused. You have become evidence of our hypocrisy. Danny frowned. I don't follow. Draconans pride themselves on strength, honor, and loyalty to clan. Yet we extend these values only to our own kind. We view other species as lesser, unworthy of our respect. Then you appear, a lone human in a damaged freighter, demonstrating all the qualities we claim to value. You are a mirror reflecting truths we would prefer not to see. That's not my problem. But it is, because now my people must decide how to respond. Some, like Forth, will recognize the value of what you represent. Others, like Saren, will see you as a threat to our cultural identity. And still others will simply want you gone, erased, so they can return to comfortable certainties. The weight of what Forth was saying settled over Danny. He'd thought this was just about security procedures and paranoid officers, but it was bigger than that. He'd accidentally challenged an entire species' worldview just by being decent. What do you think will happen? Danny asked. I think this station will become a battleground for competing philosophies. I think Saren will delay as long as possible, hopping to find something, anything, to justify his suspicions. I think other commanders will hear of this and have opinions. Many opinions. Forth met Danny's eyes. And I think you will be at the center of it all, whether you wish to be or not. Great, I just wanted to deliver some cargo. The universe rarely cares what we want, only what we do when faced with what we receive. Fourth stood slowly. For what it is worth, you have my gratitude and my protection. Vara shares this sentiment, as do Threx and Rennick. We will advocate for you. I appreciate that. Do not appreciate it yet. Wait until you see how difficult the next few days become. Fourth moved toward the door, then paused. Danny Reed, freight hauler and warrior and healer, you are about to learn something important about creating change. What's that? It is never simple, and it is never without cost. Fourth left, the door sealed behind him. Danny sat alone in the small room, surrounded by metal walls and uncertainty. Outside, he could hear the guards talking in their own language, their voices low and wary. He'd saved lives. He'd done the right thing. And somehow, that had made everything more complicated than if he just ignored the distress beacon and delivered his cargo on time. Danny pulled out his tablet and checked his contract status. Late delivery penalties were piling up. His account balance was dropping. In 3 days, he'd be operating at a loss for the entire month. But Fourth was alive. Vara, Threx, and Rennick were alive. That had to count for something. The door chimed again. This time it was Vara, carrying a tray of food. She entered without waiting for permission, dismissing the guards with a gesture. You need to eat, she said, setting the tray down. Not hungry. Eat anyway. You will need your strength for what comes. Danny looked at the food. Some kind of protein, vegetables he didn't recognize, and a grain that resembled rice. It actually smelled decent. Fourth told you, Vara asked, about how I've accidentally started a philosophical crisis for your species. Yeah, he mentioned it. This is not your fault. Feels like my fault. It is not. Vara sat on the floor across from him, mimicking Fourth's earlier posture. This reckoning was coming. You simply accelerated it. Draconans cannot sustain a culture built on isolation and superiority forever. The galaxy is too connected. Other species are too capable. Eventually, we would face our contradictions. You have merely forced us to face them now. That doesn't make me feel better. It should not. Change is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Vara watched him with those amber eyes. You saved my commander. You protected my honor guard. These debts are not small. I will stand with you through whatever comes. Even if it means going against your own people. I am standing with my people. The people they should be, not the people they pretend to be. She stood. Eat, rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. She left. Danny looked at the food, then at the door, then back at the food. His appetite was gone, but he forced himself to eat anyway. Vara was right. He'd need his strength. Outside his quarters, the station hummed with activity. Somewhere in the command center, Saren was probably examining ship logs, looking for evidence that didn't exist. Somewhere else, Fourth was likely arguing with other officers about security and honor and what it all meant. And Danny Reed, freight hauler who just wanted a simple life, sat in a small room on a Dracovan military station, eating alien food and wondering how saving a life had gotten so complicated. But he'd do it again, every time. That was the thing about doing the right thing. It was right regardless of the consequences. Even when those consequences sucked. 3 days of investigation turned into 5, then 7. Danny spent his time reading, exercising in the small space, and trying not to think about how much money he was losing. The guards rotated shifts but never left. Occasionally Vara or Threx would visit, bringing food or news. The news was never good. The investigation had expanded. More officers were involved. Questions about galactic security, debates about human capabilities, arguments about protocol versus honor. What had started as a simple security check had become something larger, something Danny didn't fully understand. On the 8th day, everything changed. Fourth appeared at the door, his movements now fluid and strong. The injuries had healed. Behind him stood Vara, and behind her, more Draconans than Danny had seen since arriving. The guard stepped aside without question. "Come with us," Forth said. "It is time." "Time for what?" "You are about to meet people who will decide your fate, and perhaps ours as well." They led him through corridors Danny hadn't seen before. The station was larger than he'd realized, sprawling through the moon's interior like a metallic warren. Other Draconans watched as they passed, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Word had spread clearly. They entered a large chamber carved from the moon's natural rock. A dozen Draconans sat in a semicircle, each on a raised platform. They were older, their scales marked with the scars and patterns of long service. This was the Council of Claws. Vara had mentioned them once. The regional authority. Saren stood to one side, his expression carefully neutral. Danny caught his eye and saw something there. Not quite satisfaction, but close. Whatever was about to happen, Saren thought he'd won. "Daniel Reed," the central Dracovan spoke. Her voice was ancient and carried absolute authority. "I am Elder Counselor Yash. You stand before the Council of Claws to answer for your actions regarding High Commander Forth and his honor guard." Danny's stomach dropped. This wasn't a hearing, it was a trial. "I wasn't aware I'd committed crimes," he said carefully. "That is what we are here to determine." Yash gestured with one clawed hand. "You violated sealed diplomatic cargo. You transported classified materials through unsecured routes. You gained access to military installations. These are serious matters." "I broke a seal to save a life. I transported survivors because they would have died otherwise. I came to this station because Second Commander Vara told me to. I haven't done anything wrong." "Intent does not negate consequence." Another counselor spoke, his voice sharp. "You have created a security situation through your interference." "I created a situation where 5 Draconans lived instead of died. If that's interference, I'll gladly interfere again." The chamber went silent. Danny realized he'd probably just made things worse. But he was tired of being diplomatic, tired of walking on eggshells around people who saw helping others as a threat. "You are defiant," Yash observed. "I'm honest, there's a difference." "Is there?" She leaned forward. "Commander Saren has testified that you represent an intelligence risk, that your presence here threatens our security protocols, that you have knowledge of our systems and capabilities that no outsider should possess. What is your response?" "My response is that I know how to set a broken bone and pilot through an asteroid field. That's not intelligence gathering. That's basic survival skills. If your security is threatened by someone knowing you have medical equipment and spaceships, your security was already broken." Several counselors shifted. Yash's expression didn't change, but Danny thought he saw something in her eyes. Amusement, maybe. "High Commander Forth," Yash said, "present your testimony." Forth stepped forward. He stood tall, his injuries now invisible. "This human saved my life when I was dying. He fought off pirates to protect us. He sacrificed his own profit and contracts to ensure our safety. These are not the actions of a spy or a threat. They are the actions of someone with honor, regardless of species." "Your judgment is compromised by gratitude," the sharp-voiced counselor said. "You cannot be objective about one who saved you." "Can you be objective about one you have never met? One whose only crime is demonstrating values you claim to hold sacred?" Forth turned to face the council fully. "I have served our people for 40 cycles. I have fought in 12 campaigns. I have led warriors and made decisions that cost lives. I know honor when I see it. Danny Reed has more honor than most Draconans I have met." The chamber erupted. Several counselors spoke at once, their voices raised in argument. Yash let it continue for a moment, then raised her hand. Silence fell immediately. "Second Commander Vara, your testimony." Vara moved forward. "I witnessed this human place himself in danger to save strangers. I saw him fight with skill and courage to protect us. I heard him speak of strength through cooperation, of helping others without expectation of reward. These philosophies challenge our culture, yes, but perhaps our culture needs challenging. You suggest we abandon our traditions, the sharp-voiced counselor demanded. I suggest we evolve them. Traditions that prevent us from recognizing honor in others are not traditions worth keeping. More arguments. Danny watched the council, trying to understand the dynamics. Some were clearly hostile, others thoughtful, a few seemed almost sympathetic. Yash remained unreadable at the center of it all. Enough, Yash said finally. Daniel Reed, you have heard the testimony. Before I render judgment, I have one question for you. Okay. Why did you help them? The truth, not the diplomatic answer. What motivated you to risk everything for beings you did not know, whose culture dismisses yours as irrelevant? Danny took a breath. This was it, the moment that would determine everything. Because I've seen what happens when people stop helping each other. During the war, both sides drew lines, decided who deserved help and who didn't, who was worthy and who wasn't. Good people died because of those lines. Some of them died in my arms, calling for help that never came because someone somewhere had decided they were on the wrong side. He met Yash's eyes. I swore after the war that I would never draw those lines again. If someone needs help and I can provide it, I help. Their species doesn't matter. Their culture doesn't matter. Whether they'd help me back doesn't matter. They're alive and they want to stay that way. That's enough. The chamber was silent. Yash studied him for a long moment. You believe this absolutely? Yes. Even now, facing judgment, possible imprisonment, financial ruin, you would do it again. Every single time. Yash leaned back. She looked at the other counselors, some kind of silent communication passing between them. Finally, she spoke. The council has reached a decision. Daniel Reed, you are found guilty of violating security protocols by breaking the seal on diplomatic cargo. Danny's heart sank. Beside him, he felt fourth tense. However, Yash continued, the circumstances of that violation demonstrate clear necessity and resulted in the preservation of a high commander's life. The Council recognizes that rigid adherence to protocol would have resulted in preventable death. Therefore, the violation is noted but no punishment is warranted. Relief flooded through Danny, not guilty but not innocent either, a middle ground. Furthermore, Yash said, and her voice carried something new now, something almost like respect. The Council acknowledges that your actions have exposed fundamental questions about Dracovan culture and our treatment of other species. These questions cannot be ignored. High Commander 4th, 2nd Commander Vara, you will work with human diplomatic representatives to establish new protocols for interspecies cooperation and mutual aid. This human has shown us that strength includes recognition of when help is needed, and the courage to accept it. The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Not all approval, but not all hostility either. Change, Danny realized. He was witnessing the beginning of actual change. Daniel Reed, Yash said, your ship has been repaired and upgraded at council expense as compensation for the delay. You are free to continue your delivery route. However, before you go, there is one more matter. Fourth approached. In his hands he carried something that looked like a medallion, bronze metal etched with intricate patterns. He held it out to Danny. This is the mark of scales. It is given to those who have demonstrated honor and courage in service to the Dracovan people. Only twice before has it been awarded to a non-Dracovan. You are the third. Danny took the medallion, surprised by its weight. I don't know what to say. Say nothing, accept it, wear it. Let it remind you that your actions mattered, that they changed minds and hearts, that simple decency can reshape cultures. Fourth placed his clawed hand on Danny's shoulder. Thank you, Daniel Reed, for saving my life, for teaching me that strength comes in many forms, for showing my people what we could be. One by one, the counselors stood. Then, in a gesture Danny didn't understand but felt the weight of, they lowered themselves. Not quite kneeling, but close. A sign of respect reserved for heroes and legends. Danny looked around the chamber, overwhelmed. He was a freight hauler. He delivered cargo. He just wanted to help someone who was dying, and somehow that had led to this. Go now, Yash said gently. Complete your deliveries. Live your life. But know that what you did here will echo through Dracovan space for generations. You have given us a mirror to see ourselves clearly. What we do with that reflection is now our responsibility. They escorted him back to his ship. The steady hand looked better than she had in years. New hull plates, upgraded engines, refurbished systems. The repairs had been thorough. Vara stood at the airlock. Your cargo is loaded. Your route is clear. The delivery penalties have been waived through Dracovan diplomatic channels. You will receive full payment despite the delay. You didn't have to do that. Yes, we did. It is the least we owe you. She paused. I learned something from you, Danny Reed, that asking for help is not weakness, that cooperation can be strength, that perhaps my people have been wrong about many things. Thank you for that lesson. Just doing what felt right. That is what makes it meaningful. Safe travels, freight hauler. May your routes be clear and your cargo arrive intact. She turned and left. Danny watched her go, then climbed aboard his ship. The cockpit welcomed him like an old friend. He strapped in, ran through the pre-flight checklist, and requested departure clearance. The steady hand pulled away from the station slowly. Through the viewport, Danny could see Draconans gathered at the observation windows, watching. Some waved. Others just stood, silent witnesses to something they didn't fully understand yet. AI, plot course for the outer fringe. Let's get this cargo delivered. Course plotted. Estimated arrival in 42 hours. Shall I play your usual departure music? Yeah, why not? Ancient earth rock poured through the speakers, something with guitars and drums and energy. Danny smiled despite himself. He'd left Freeman Station 8 days ago with a simple mail run. He was returning with a medallion, an upgraded ship, and the knowledge that he'd somehow changed an entire culture just by being decent. The station receded in the viewport. The moon's surface fell away. Space opened up before him, infinite and full of possibility. One more thing, AI, Danny said. Yes. When we get to the delivery point, check the job boards. See what other distress beacons might need answering. What other routes might need a freight hauler who's willing to stop and help. That is not profitable behavior. No, but it's the right behavior, and I'm starting to think that's worth more than profit. The AI was silent for a moment. Understood, scanning for opportunities to assist others in need. That's the spirit. Danny leaned back in his chair, the medallion heavy around his neck. Behind him, Dracovan space faded into the distance. Ahead, the galaxy stretched out full of deliveries to make, cargo to haul, and maybe, if he was lucky, a few more lives to save. Just another day for a simple freight hauler. Nothing special, nothing extraordinary. Except it was, and he knew it. And somewhere behind him, dragons who had never knelt before were learning that strength came in forms they'd never imagined. The steady hand jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving the moon and its lessons behind. But the lessons traveled with Danny, in a bronze medallion, and in the memory of what happened when someone simply chose to help. Simple mail run, he thought, smiling. Nothing simple about it at all.